Thank you for tuning in to MacroView Television and welcome to a brand new edition of the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. In this world where disaster could strike at any moment, it is important to have some basic understanding about first aid. On today's program, we're delighted to have an expert on first aid to be our special guest to discuss the issues and information that you need to know about first aid and much more. Welcome to the program, Mr. Garry Huang.
Good morning. Hello, Raymond.
Yes.
And hello, audience.
Yes, it's a delight to have you here on the program.
Thank you very much.
I understand, Garry, that you are a civil engineer and project manager by trade, but actually you're also the expert, in first aid. Can you tell us why that you were interested in the first aid? And I understand there was a story behind it when you were growing up. Would you mind sharing that with us?
What had happened was in 1995 at school, we were conducting a camping experience.
Yes.
And during that camp, I had a bit of a misadventure and an accident.
Okay.
And when I fell on my head and landed unconsciously, I needed to be airlifted by a medical helicopter.
That was in Taiwan or in Australia?
No, that was in Australia. And
Okay.
So having that experience, and I always believed that since I've taken so much out of the society in Australia, that I wanted to give something back. Mm-hmm. And it seems like community service is a good way to go, and just so happened I had a passion in first aid, and the rest is history.
Okay, but you mentioned about the accident. Was that serious? How long were you hospitalized?
No, it was only an overnight observation.
Okay,
They suspected I had severe spinal injuries, but
Okay.
Thankfully that did not happen, and I was discharged later that night.
Okay, but everything now is back to normal?
Minor neck pains, but apart from that, that's not a problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that got you interested in first aid.
Yes.
And how did you go about, getting more involved and, acquire the basic knowledge about first aid?
Right. As part of that course, or part of that camp, we needed to have some first aid experience. And the school organised for us to attend a first aid course conducted by an organisation called St John Ambulance Australia.
Okay, exactly.
And ever since then, I've been fascinated by it. And when I left high school, I decided to enroll in an advanced first aid course.
Okay.
And in that first aid course, I saw some brochures about becoming a first aid volunteer.
Exactly.
And I signed up in 1998.
Okay.
And I've been volunteering for St John Ambulance since 1998, and I've been teaching first aid for them since 2000.
Yes, I understand that you must have a very busy schedule with your work. How do you find the time to do the first aid work?
The beauty about the organisation is that we're a volunteer organisation, and
Exactly.
they basically have a minimum commitment of 60 hours per year.
68?
No, 60 hours per year.
60 hours, okay.
So basically, if you can contribute 60 hours per year, then that's all they ask of you. But then obviously, depending on the portfolio that you hold within the organisation, so it happens my portfolio, I'm probably committing about 500-600 hours a year.
So that amounts to about 40-50 hours a month?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
So basically...
So you're almost, doing the volunteer work almost every weekend?
Yeah, and then basically on the phone every night trying to coordinate things and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And basically every hour that you commit to the organisation, you can count towards your service hours.
Okay. And I understand in addition to the training that you mentioned, you also need to get a lot of certificates. What kinds of certificates have you gotten?
Well, the basic introduction to the organisation, you need to obtain a senior first aid certificate. But once you join the organisation, they certainly train you up to a higher level of first aid qualifications.
Of course.
And what we have is basically a senior first aid certificate, followed by an advanced first aid certificate, occupational first aid certificate, advanced life support, which then teaches you how to use the oxygen equipment, administration of analgesic gases, and defibrillation.
Yes.
So it would teach you how to use defibrillators. And those that are even more advanced, they send you off to a nationally recognised training program, and then you can obtain a certificate 2 in emergency first response, or a certificate 3 in basic healthcare.
Okay.
And so depending on the level of qualifications that you have, you can certainly perform various duties and tasks at first aid events.
I suppose that you're still in the process of getting more certificates in the future. What's the area that you're interested in next?
I'm pretty much have obtained all the certificates that you can obtain.
Okay, in the area of first aid?
In the area of first aid. The area that they're sort of developing me now is in counter-disaster commander role.
Okay.
So they've sent me off on a couple of training courses to enable me to have the knowledge and the skills to actually command a team of people to go into a disaster area to actually basically perform rescue operations.
Well, let me ask you that. Was some of these certificates very difficult to obtain? Was the training tough?
The training is tough. There's a lot of textbook theory learning, and then not only that, you also need to know a lot of basically practical experience. So you can't go in there within 1 or 2 years and expect to learn or obtain all these qualifications.
Exactly.
And it took me about 8-10 years before I've reached where I am at the moment, and thankfully I've had a lot of support from my senior management staff. And yeah.
Okay, so you've been through the certificate process, and you've also accumulated tremendous experiences in terms of rescue events and things. And I want to ask you then, Garry, what do you think are some of the more important characteristics for somebody who's interested, to be in the first aid area, to be a first aid, service provider? What are some of the qualifications they need or qualities they need?
Well, the first and foremost important quality is that you need to have a passion to serve the community. Because understanding that the organisation is a charity organisation, and that we are completely staffed by volunteers. In New South Wales, Australia, we have about 3,500 volunteers, and not a single one of them is paid. Apart from that, you need to also have an understanding of basic knowledge, medical terminology, and also have a compassion to actually assist people when they're in need. So, what you have is that you want to help people, and then you want to be able to go in there and assist when you can. Yeah,
and you also want to be, make sure that you are prepared and equipped to conduct those activities.
That's correct.
Yes. So, this is something, of course, I understand is very important to you in your life. And do you believe that in the future that your involvement in this area will become even greater, that you may assume additional responsibilities, and then maybe you devote more time and maybe less time on your work? Is that possible?
It's always possible. In the organisation, there's a running joke that there's St. John is a second life. It's a family. You have no
Once you
work.
join, you don't want to leave.
That's right. You have no other job apart from your volunteer work in St. John. I have been asked by my immediate supervisor whether if I wanted to take on more responsibilities. But personal commitments and other work requirements and family requirements have prohibited me from doing that. But at the moment I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I've taken on some special projects here and there, and yeah, it's been good. The experience has been very rewarding.
Yeah, as you continue your involvement in the first aid area in Australia, what do you think are some of the likely challenges that you may have as you getting more involved in the process?
The biggest hurdle that we've been facing in the last couple of years is the standardisation of the clinical skills, and that hurdle has been sort of overcome through the recognition of national qualifications. So like the Certificate 2 in Emergency First Response and the Certificate 3 in Basic Healthcare. So what we had is a lot of people, even though they had the right certificates, the level of clinical care that they're able to provide patients varies a lot from person to person. And with this qualification, it brings in a whole level standard on the level of care that we're able to provide our casualties. And as an organisation, that can only mean as a good thing. The future challenges is that, especially in the current economic outlook, the number of people that are willing to commit to the volunteering organisations and the amount of people that are willing to donate money to the volunteer organisations, that's something that the senior management needs to address and try to overcome in the next couple of years, because the demand for our services has only been ever growing. And the membership level has sort of been steady over the last 5 to 6 years. And so that basically means that every member is pitching in more and more, and that could eventually only lead to burnout. So
that is something of a concern in the future.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
And also, Garry, I want to ask you that Australia, of course, is blessed in the sense of not having some chronic natural disasters, like those of us in Taiwan every summer where we'll encounter typhoons and things. But, I mean, in terms of, being the, area of first aid, what would be some of the things that, have come across in your recent memory that you've been involved with in terms of helping people who need first aid? Would it be like, car accidents, or is this, a burning house, or, what are some of the incidents that you've been involved with?
Couple of the most memorable ones is probably the Sydney 2000 Olympics, although
Right. At the time, you just started doing the...
Yeah, although at that time, I was not volunteering for St John Ambulance, I was actually volunteering for the Olympic Committee, and I was working as an interpreter. But knowing that there was a lot of St John volunteers in and out of the area and providing first aid coverage for the millions and millions of spectators that were there. More recently, we had the Rugby World Cup that was hosted in Sydney, and in last year we had the Catholic World Youth Day in Sydney as well, and that involved probably about 700,000 pilgrims coming to Sydney all across the world. And we had St John volunteers again from around the world. So we had people from New Zealand, we had people from Australia, Canada, South Africa, Hong Kong, UK, and so on and so forth.
From Taiwan?
No, apparently St John is not operational in Taiwan.
Not yet.
Not yet. St John Ambulance Australia, or St John Ambulance, I should say, has a history dating back to the United Kingdoms. And it's more, you can see more of St John activities in the Commonwealth countries. Although there's some activity in the United States, but they're not a major player in their kind of disaster roles.
Well, thank you for that introductory background about your involvement in the first aid area. We're going to take a short break on the Taiwan Outlook. We'll be right back with Mr. Garry Huang. We're going to continue this discussion and talk about some of these more formidable experiences in the first aid rescue events in Australia. We'll be right back.